So we are on Daf Ayin Dalid, and sorry, I'm a little discombobulated in my setup, but so correct me if I make any mistakes in reading or I miss a line or anything. I'm reading on a screen. But we learned we're in the middle of a sugya. He said he only got to the two dots at the bottom of Ayin Gimel and Bet. So
Yeah.
we'll start there, which is fine. It's actually otherwise it would be the middle of a sugya. But the question we're discussing is when do you kill a person who's a rodef, essentially, right? Meaning if someone is going, that was of course the context of our Mishnah, Baba Machteret, when is it permitted to consider someone a rodef and to kill them basically? And we learned yesterday in the Braita that the word chet, which I think is what we're up to, chet, right? Elu chayve kritut, right? That when it says the word chet, it's adding that there are times where you basically kill a person who is going to go and is about to be over a chiyuv of karet. So ask the Gemara today, how does that make any sense? For a minute, what about the following Braita, which actually is a real Mishnah that we've had many times? The Elu Narot Sheyesh Lem Kanas, right? The beginning of the third parak, I think, of Ketubot says the Elu Narot Sheyesh Lem Kanas. This is the time where a person who rapes or takes advantage of a young woman pays a knas. Haba achoto, someone who is bia with his sister. Now, of course, sleeping with someone's sister is an isser of karet, right? And mita, but karet including mita. And if the truth is, right, that you are supposed to kill that person while they're doing the act, then why do you have to pay a knas? You should say kim le b'derabamine, right? You only do the more severe one. So Amru Rabbanan Kamei Rav Chisda. So the Rabbanan said in front of Rav Chisda a very complicated answer, which is that in fact the act of intercourse is two stages. Mishat ha'ara de pagma. That the time that he is hara, which we'll define that in a second, but hara means initiation of bia, of intercourse, he's already pogame her, and that basically is the sort of responsibility that he has for sleeping with her, and so he's chayiv mita. So iftar le miktala. At that point is when he, quote unquote, is chayiv to be killed, right? Meaning after he's done that point, you no longer would kill him. So after that point, he's putter from being killed, meaning the whole purpose, as we said yesterday, or whoever said yesterday, I believe, of killing a person who's going to be someone else is to protect that other person. But once he basically has done the act, there's no more protecting, quote, his sister in this case. So you no longer would kill him. But mimona lo mishalam ad gemar bia. But he doesn't have to actually pay the money, meaning the chiyuv of the knas only comes at the end of the act. So since the beginning of the act already is when he's chayiv mita and when you could have killed him. At the end of the act, you can't kill him, and that's when he has to pay. So they're basically two separate parts of the act. Says the Gemara, well, it depends on whether you believe that there's two separate parts to bia. Right? To be a big machlok, what does ha'ara, the first stage of bia, mean? If it means nishika, it really means kissing, but meaning touching of skin, not any penetration. So then I get it. That's one step. Then the second step is penetration. But if you say hara means the beginning of penetration, meaning the entrance of the atara, of the tip of the penis, then it's not two steps. It's right, it's one part of an act. Ela Amar Rav Chisda says Rav Chisda, well, the answer must be gon shabala shelo kedarka. Cases where somebody, either him or somebody else, it's not really important for this purpose, slept with her anally, shalokadarka, and be a shalokadarka with her, and so therefore she no longer is subject to all the rules that you would have for killing someone who slept with her. Then he sleeps with her kedarka. So since basically the initial act already was pogame her honor, you wouldn't then kill him the second time, and so since you wouldn't kill him. At that time, he's chayiv a kanas for taking away her betulim. Rava Amar, Rava has another answer, where the bottom line, remember we had a case before we discussed, what if the person who's the victim of the crime says, leave him alone, or leave them alone, and don't kill him, even though you can kill the person attempting to rape her or hurt her. That person, that victim can say, don't do it. And if you believe that, Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, then if she says, I don't want you to kill him, even though he's doing this act, then you wouldn't kill him, and he'd be chayiv a knas. Rav Papa Amar, Rav Papa says, top line now, of Daf Ayin Daled Amid Aleph, well, the answer could be very simple, because when you pay a knas, you don't just pay a knas for a rape. You also pay a knas, a different one, for mifutah. And the Mishnah is talking about both of the cases, and the case of mifutah is divrei hakol. In the case of mifutah, everybody would agree that that she agrees to. There's no point in killing him to prevent him from doing an act that she has agreed to. Now, he seduced her, so he does have to pay knast or whatever, but he doesn't, and of course he's chayiv, but you wouldn't kill him for doing that act. That's Rav Papa's answer. Abaya, I think we're up to the fifth answer already. Abaya, at the end of the first line, says, you know what the case is? And this gets into a very complicated detail, very complicated, of course. It's talking about a case where this man is committing rape in this case, or whatever, or whatever sin, or killing someone, and you're allowed to kill them, but you're only allowed to kill them if that's the only way to stop them. If you could stop them by shooting their leg or by sacrificing one of their other organs, short of killing them, you'd be chayiv to do that. So it's not a blanket patur to kill them. You have to do whatever you can to stop them, up to and including killing them. But if in this case, someone could have stopped this man without killing him, he's not chayiv mita. All he's chayiv is what they would have done. So say shooting him in the leg or whatever it might be. So then he's not patur from paying the knas. And it's the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan ben Shaul. The Tanya, as we quoted earlier, Rabbi Yonatan ben Shaul Omer, Rodef Shayir Rodef Achar Chaviro Lahargo, right? If you have a Rodef, he's the Rodef and he's acting as a Rodef, right? So the noun Rodef and the verb Rodef. So he is a Rodef. I don't know what English word we use for Rodef, but a person chasing after someone to kill them, right? Who is chasing after someone to kill them. V'yachol la'atzil be'echad me'everav v'lo hitzil. Right, Ruvain is chasing after Shimon, and you could stop Ruvain by shooting him in the leg, but you don't. Instead, you kill Ruvain, then Neheragalav. Then the person who killed Ruvain has no excuse because he wasn't supposed to do that. He was supposed to stop him in some other way. My time at Rabbi Yonatan ben Shaul. What's the source of this halacha of Rabbi Yonatan ben Shaul? This div, because the pasuk, the whole source of, well, not the whole source, one of the sources of the whole idea of punishing someone who hurt someone else is the pasuk that we had last week in Mishpatim, right? People are fighting with each other, and by mistake, the pasuk says someone hits a pregnant woman and she has a miscarriage, right? So we said before, Amar ben Lazar, it's talking about a case where a person was trying to kill the first person, meaning Reuven was fighting with Shimon and he wanted to kill Shimon. He missed Shimon and instead killed the ubar inside of the belly of whatever, Rachel or whatever name might be. But it's talking about a case where he was trying to kill the first person. And the way you know that is because it says, it says in the pasuk, if something happens, nefesh, right? You would take his life, the one who did the killing, in place of the life that he killed. But you can only say that if it was done on purpose, right? Meaning he was trying to kill person A, he missed, he killed person B, then you could talk about punishing him. But if he was trying to hurt person A and by mistake hit person B and killed them, it was a mistake, then you wouldn't take his life, right? That would be a killing b'shogeg. So clearly, the person is trying to kill, so Reuven again is trying to kill Shimon. That's the case. And let's say, and the pasuk gives us a scenario where he misses Shimon, he hits this pregnant woman, he causes her to have a miscarriage, and afilu hachi amar achmana v'lo yiyeh ason. If the person doesn't die, right, then the woman doesn't die. Anosh yanesh, he has to pay for the damage that he caused if he has to pay for the damage he caused to this person. Now the question is, why would he have to pay for the damage? If he's trying to kill Reuven, then he's chayiv mita, then anyone could kill him at that time. Right? Anyone watching him going after trying to kill Reuven could kill him. So if he does something else at the same time and kills somebody else or hurt somebody else, not kill somebody else, then why would he have to pay for those damages? He's a dead man. It must be, right? If you explain it the way I am saying it now, which is that even though he was going after and trying to kill someone, you could have stopped him by hurting his leg, by stopping him short of killing him, right? Where am I? That if you're able to stop him, to save him by attacking one of his organs, meaning short of killing him, you're not allowed to kill him, then now it's a very clear case where you would get punished because you're trying to kill someone and by mistake you harm somebody else, but you're not a dead person because they could have stopped you by doing something short of killing you. That's the last narrow line. But as we say now in the first wide line, if you're allowed to kill someone who's trying to murder someone else, no matter what, even if you could stop him short of that, then how do you ever find it that a person who's trying to kill someone and by mistake harms somebody else has to pay for harming the other person? Well, that's not necessarily a proof. Dilma, because maybe Shani Hacha, maybe that's different. The mita lezeh v'tashlum lezeh, right? Maybe it's different here because you're trying to kill Reuven, right? And that's why we would stop you. But you're actually damaging the woman or the woman's fetus, right? So you're damaging somebody else. And so you're allowed to be killed because of what you're doing for Reuven, but you're paying for somebody else. So maybe that is different, right? Maybe. It says the Gemara, no, the Bach here says, no. Says Gemara, and maybe that's different, right? If you're trying to basically do it to different people. Says Gemara, but that's wrong. Loshna. There's really no difference, right? If you're a dead man, you're a dead man. So it doesn't really matter. Damar Rava, as Rava said very clearly, we had this before. Rodef shayu rodef acher chavero. Again, a rodef, a person chasing after someone to kill them, in this case, who's chasing after someone. B'shiberet kelim, and you break, some china on the way, some vases on the way. Bein shel nirdaf, whether they belong to the one you're trying to kill. Bein shel kol adam, they could belong to anybody in the street. You're patur. You don't have to pay if, let's say, you miss, right? You shoot your gun at someone and you miss him and you break someone's car window. You don't pay. My time, huh? Because mitchayip benafsho. Because at the time that you were shooting someone, anyone could have killed you, right? And furthermore, said Rava before, nirdaf sheshiberta kelim shel rodef. If the one who's being chased, again, Reuven is chasing after Shimon to kill him, and Shimon breaks the kelim of the rodef, right? So he escapes death, but he also wrecks his car. Then patur, he's also patur because he's allowed to do that. But shel kol adam, if he breaks somebody else's things, then he'd chayav, right? If he has, in order to save his own life, he takes somebody else's car and wrecks it, you have to pay that person. Why? Shel rodef patur, the person who's trying to kill him, you're patur shelo yehi memano chavav migufo. Because since you're allowed, basically, the words mean, because your money is not more precious to you than your body, right? Meaning that since you're allowed to harm the person, you're allowed to kill the person chasing after you, you can certainly damage him, damage his property. But shel kol adam chayav, but if you harm the property of somebody else, you are chayav to pay that person back. Shematzil atzmo b'mamon chavero, because basically you're saving yourself using somebody else's money, which is, maybe they'll be very happy you did it, but that doesn't mean that you're allowed to do it, and you have to pay them back for the property that they lost. Now, maybe you can sue Reuven who was trying to kill you, but that's a whole different story. Sezimar continues the next case of Rava. The rodef, no, it gets more complicated here, but we'll follow along. A rodef, again, rodef, we're going to call Reuven. Shaya rodef achar rodef latzilo, right? So Shimon is chasing after Levi, and Reuven sees Shimon, and he chases after Shimon to kill him. Okay, so you got the story. Reuven is chasing after Shimon to kill Shimon because Shimon is chasing after Levi to kill Levi. So Shimon started the business, but Reuven's continuing it. And while Reuven is chasing after Shimon to kill him because he's about to kill Levi, Shiberet Kelim, Reuven breaks something. Bein shel rodef, whether they belong to Shimon, who he's chasing after. Bein shel nirdaf, whether they belong to Levi, who's the ultimate victim. Bein shel kol adam, or they belong to Stam, a person, patur. In all these cases, you're patur, right? And the reason for that is Lumen Hadin. It's a kal v'chomer, basically. We'll see what we mean in a minute. But it makes sense because Shemiato Merkin, because if you don't pater Reuven from any damage that he does on the way to kill Shimon to save Levi's life, nobody's going to go and help. And no one will join Hatzalah if you're going to get a traffic ticket on your way to save that person. So we have to make a rule that prevents you from any punishment for damage that's done incidentally along the way. Aval continues the Mishnah. This is a quote from the Mishnah before. Harodef achar behema. Let's say a person is chasing after an animal to commit an act of sodomy with the animal, which is an isser of mita, but because there's no human victim here, I'll put it that way, we don't kill the person. We don't kill Reuven and stop him from doing the act. Tanya Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer, Haved avodah zarah nitin latzilo b'nafsho b'kal v'chomer. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said maybe that's true about that case, but if your person is going to worship avodah zarah, right? So you have a person who's going to worship an idol, then you can kill him to stop him from doing it. Mikal v'chomer. Because now again, you're not saving. Well, we'll see. Well, let's read it. What's the kal v'chomer? Uma pegam hedyon itan letzilo benafsho. Right, a man who's going to rape a woman or take advantage of someone, we say we'll kill him in order to stop that woman or that person from being subject to pogam, to being desecrated or being harmed. So pegam gavot golshkein, a person is going to worship avodah zarah and cast aspersion on God. For sure, you should protect God, so to speak, by killing them. So this is the Gemara, but that's a kal v'chomer. Can you really punish someone just because it makes sense? There's no reference at all to this. There's no source at all. So it's Gemara kasavra onshim min adin. Yeah, in fact, that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai holds you can be onshim min adin. Remember, it's a machloket, but that's his opinion. Tanya Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Lezer, the son of Rabbi Shimon, said, "Hamechalel the Shabbat." Let's say a person is about to go and be mechal Shabbat. Nitin latzilo benafsho. You can kill him. You can stop him from doing that by taking his life. So now clearly, clearly he holds like his father, who just said that you can do the same thing by a person going to worship avodah zarah from a kal v'chomer, damar onshim min adin, and he extends it further and says, "At Shabbat v'chilu chilu me avodah zarah." That in fact we have a comparison of Shabbat, which desecrating Shabbat is chilul Hashem in some way, and chilul of avodah zarah. So he extends that further along. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Yotzadak. Sorry, let me just find the place. There's 2 dots, right? No, not 2 dots. It's the second word on the line. We are, I guess, not quite halfway down the wide lines, but this is a really very, very important Gemara. Not that they're all not very important, but this is one that, of course, has been the subject of tremendous discussion, debate, often in very difficult times. So said Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehotzadak, Nimnu v'gamru b'aliyat beit Natzebelud. They got together in this place. We don't know where it is, but it's important because it marks the statement, basically. They had a conference in Aliyah and Beit Nitzeh, and they said the following, Kol averot shebatorah, right? Of course, this was very important in times of the Roman decrees that you couldn't worship Hashem. So they said, any averah in the Torah, im omrim la adam, if the government or someone says to a person, avar va'al tahareg, do this act and we won't kill you. But if you don't do it, we're going to kill you. Eat something or do something, whatever the act might be. We'll discuss, of course, many of the details. Said the rabbis concluded, Ya'avor v'al yarig, do the avera and don't allow yourself to be killed. Chutz from the big 3, avodah zarah, gilui arayot, and shvichut damim. Except for those 3, we say that you essentially should do the act to save your life rather than lose your life. Except avodah zarah, gilui arayot, and shvichut damim. Says Gemara. So that's the statement. Now we're going to go through all of it. Avodah zarah lo, is it true that you're not supposed to worship avodah zarah because you want to save, in order to save your life? Meaning, if they come to you and say, bow down or worship avodah zarah will kill you, you should say, kill me. Tanya, but we have a braita, which is Ramar Rabbi Yishmael, minayin shemomrim lo la'adam. How do you know if they say to a person, avod avodah zarah v'al te'areg, worship avodah zarah and we won't kill you? Minayin, says Rabbi Yishmael, sheyavod v'al yareg, worship the idol and don't be killed. Talmud lomar v'chai b'hem, b'lo yishim mutzbehem. The principle of v'chai b'hem applies in that case. So if your choice is life or avod or avera, choose life. So he says by avodah zarah, continues the braita, af yachal afilo b'parhesya. Now you might think that that's even if they come to you and they say worship avodah zarah in public, then that the principle of v'chai b'hem doesn't apply. Talmud lomar, because it says in the pasuk, "V'lo tichalu et shem kachi v'niktashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael." We're going to quote the whole psukim later, but don't be mechalel my name. So there's clearly a tension between the chai b'hem, do whatever you can to stay alive, and don't be mechalel Hashem, right? So, but clearly, if it's in private, Rabbi Yishmael is saying worship avodah zarah. It's only in public where you can, and it sounds like from the principle they had before that this is one of the big 3, and you never worship avodah zarah. You're right, it's a machloket. But Inu, the rabbis who concluded this, and quoted by Rabbi Yochanan, Damak Rabbi Eliezer. They paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer, it says in the pasuk, it's very familiar to all of us, right? In Shema, V'haftat Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol meodecha. You should love Hashem with all of these resources. Says the Braitim, Nemar b'chol nafshecha, it says with your whole nefesh, right, your whole life, basically, why does it say all your money? What's, it's saying with everything you've got. Whatever is it telling you? Says Rebbe Eliezer, says the Braita, because look, if there's some people who would rather be alive and have no money, right? So they're willing to give up all their money, but they're not willing to give up their life. The kach nemer b'chol nafshecha. Therefore, it says no. You have to love Hashem even if it takes your whole life, which implies you have to kill yourself. So that's the source that you have to be Yaharog for Avodah Zarah Al Yavor. But ends the bright There's some people who they'd rather die than lose all their money, right? Rather die than be impoverished. Pasuk saying it doesn't matter. You still should give up all your money for Hashem. But basically, according to Rabbi Eliezer, this pasuk is a source that from Shema that you have to worship Hashem b'chol nafshecha. And if someone says to you, don't worship Hashem, but don't have Avodah Zarah, even if it's in private, you give up your soul. We will keep discussing it, but it's a machloket, as we just said. But that was the conclusion that they came to in Aliyah Beit Nitzeh. So that's Avodah Zarah. What about Gilui Arayot to Shvichut Damim? What about the other two? That's Kiddur Rebbe. That's based on the Braita of Rebbe Tanya, Rebbe Omer. It says in the pasuk, right, that by Nara Murasa, that Kika Asher Yakum Ish Al Re'eo Tzachon Nefesh Kenan Davar Hazeh. Right? It says that just like we said, we don't punish the woman, right? If the man rapes her outside of the city and she cried out and no one came, we don't punish her because it's like someone who killed somebody else, right? Like, what was she supposed to do about it? It's like someone who was the victim of a murder. It says, what did you learn from this? Well, that's a very strange example. What comparisons have to Rotzeach? What we learn from here, and again, we've quoted this many times before, Hareza Balalamed, the pasuk implies that we're there to learn something from murder to Nara Marasa. B'nimsa Lamad, Lamed, right? We thought you were going to learn from murder. We teach something about murder. And we are Makish Rotzeach Nara Marasa. We compare the case of one person murdering another person to a person raping a Nara Marasa. Ma Nara Marasa, just like we know about Nara Marasa, and this is the source we had earlier, Nitein Latzilo B'nafsho. You're allowed to stop him from doing it by taking his soul. So too, by Rotzeach, if a person is chasing after someone to kill them, you can kill the intended murderer, called the Rodef. And continues Rebbe, Umakish Nara Marasa Lerotzeach. And in fact, we then, which again was what we discussed yesterday, but for today's purpose, we go the other way. We compare Nara Marasa to Rotzeach, just like Rotzeach is Yaharog ve'al Ya'avar. Just like by Rotzeach, if someone says to you, go murder somebody else or I'll kill you, you should allow yourself to be killed and not murder someone. So too by Nara Marasa, and by extension all Arayot, if they say to you, go commit the sin, you should be killed and not do it. So that's how we know Nara Marasa and Gilui Arayot. We know it from Rotzeach. Ask the Gemara, well, we didn't tell you Rotzeach yet. Rotzeach Gufa Min Alen. How do you know it by the third, by Rotzeach? Says the Gemara Svaro. That is just common sense, right? I don't know if common sense is the right word, but it's it's logic. There was a person who once came in front of Rabbah. Well, Marlon, he said to him, Amrli Mari Durai. I don't know who Mari Durai is, but he, must be some, Durai means my place, right? But I don't know if it's a local place, if that was a title that they used to have. But, the leader, the local clan leader said to me, Zil Katle Leplanya. Go kill Joe. Vilo katil nalach, and if not, I'll kill you. Right? Go commit this murder, knock this guy off, or I'm going to kill you. Amarle, so Rabbah said to him that your response is simple. You should be killed and don't kill the other person. Because what right do you have to say, I'm going to save my life by taking somebody else's life? Mi Yemar, the very famous formulation, who says, who says your blood is darker, is redder? Meaning more alive. Maybe his blood is better, meaning you can't really know. And therefore, because it's the exact same act, right? It's very hard to compare, Avodah Zarah or Gilui Arayot and death, right? They're different things, right? But this is death, this is murder. So you can't choose your life over somebody else if you're actively killing them, right? If it's passive, it's a whole different discussion. But if you're actively killing them, you can't do that. Now, so that is the basic principle of Yarog Ve'al Yavar. Now, we're going to keep discussing this. We're not done, don't worry. But where are we up to? We are 4 lines in the bottom, right? So Ki'ata Ravdimi. Now to add a little bit of detail to this, meaning another detail of the halacha, when Ravdimi came to Bavel, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, is it Ravdimi or Rav? Where am I? Yeah. Ravdimi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, who was in Eretz Yisrael, of course, Lo Shanu, this principle that any time that you are being asked to be over an Avodah Zarah, an Avera, you should do the Avera, except for Avodah Zarah, Shvichut Amim, and Gilui Arayot. That's only true ela shelo b'shat hashmad. If it's not a time of specific religious decrees, right? I don't know how you translate Shemad in English. Aval b'shat hashmad, but if it's a time where there's a specific decree against committing, practicing Jewish laws, then you've got to afilo mitzvah kala. Then basically, even a small mitzvah becomes a major thing. And then yareg v'al yavar. Even for a mitzvah kala, you would have to be killed rather than be over the mitzvah. Rashi there's an interesting Rashi here at the last line of the page, if you have Rashi, is that right? Meaning, if they're doing it intentionally, then their whole point of telling you to go and eat basar v'chalav, let's say, to pick an example, is not because for whatever sick reason they want to do it, and it's worth your life to do that. It's because they're trying to weaken your faith. And so when you do one step, they'll keep going with other steps, and therefore you have to take a stand and not be over anything. That's Rashi's explanation. Again, these were unfortunately very relevant questions in many times in Jewish history. Hopefully never again, but certainly many times. And so there's a lot of writing and discussion about the details. Continues the Gemara. Where am I? 3 lines in the bottom. Kiyata Ravin, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu shelo b'shat gzerat malchut, or shmad is what I quoted earlier, different gersot. Even if it's not in a time of gzerut malchut, lo amruela b'tzina. This whole discussion about doing the act and not killing yourself, being killed, is only if you're in private. Aval b'farhesia, if it's a public act, then afila mitzvah kala, again, even a mitzvah kala, yareg al yavor, you should be killed and not do it. And asking about my mitzvah kala, what's included, what do we mean by mitzvah kala? When we didn't know you give weights to the mitzvah. Amar Rabba, or Rav, Amar Barav Yitzchak, Amar Rav, on the page, to daf ayin daled amabet, afilo, even if they ask you to do something very small, which is the shanuye arakta dimsana. They ask you to change the straps, the shoelace. We always translate it as shoelaces, but arakta, I guess they didn't really have shoelaces, but the attachments of your sandals, which again is clearly not a mitzvah, but we're talking in a case where there was something very distinctly Jewish or agreed to by the Jews about how they would wear their things, and the goyim and the non-Jews or the government is trying to stop you. Anyways, Tosas here discusses how their shoes were different, and as I said, there's a lot of halachot that discuss this because, of course, it came up very much in real life when Jews were asked or made to go against their religion. Ask the Gemara now, but what does B'far Hesia mean? So what does Rabbi Yochanan mean when he says that if it's in public, you should be Yaharog V'al Yavor? Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yochanan, Ein B'far Hesia B'chuta Me'asar B'nei Adam. Hesia means 10 people or more. Now, Pshita, it's obvious to us that by 10, we don't mean 10 people, we mean Yisraelim Bayinon. We mean 10 Jews, because the whole reason that, and the quote pasuk we quoted earlier, was Nikdashti B'toch B'nei Yisrael, right? That was the pasuk that we quoted earlier to say, don't embarrass me, don't desecrate me, and keep me holy among B'nei Yisrael. But the question that by Rabbi Yirmiyah, what if it's Tisha Yisrael v'goy echad? Meaning, what if the majority are Yisrael, but not all 10? Mahu. Tashma. So let's learn from a source. Tani Rabbi Yanai, Achuad, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yanai, brother of Rabbi Chia bar Abba said, Atya toch toch. In fact, there's a way to learn out the word toch, b'toch b'nei Yisrael, from the word toch somewhere else. It says in this reference, Nikdashti b'toch b'nei Yisrael, sanctify me among b'nei Yisrael. B'ktiv hatam says by the Miraglim, right? The Hashem told, by Korach, not the Miraglim, by Korach, he badlu mitoch eda azot, right? Hashem said to Moshe, separate yourself from this Eda. And Ma'alalan Asara v'kol Yisrael, just like there, it was referring to 10. No, it was much more than 10, but it was at least 10. And they were all Yisrael, Afkan Asara v'kol Yisrael. So too, the only people who count for public are 10 Yisraelim. Ask the Gemara now, fascinating and complicated question, but one that's very timely since we just started the month of Adar. But what about Esther? What about Esther? Esther was being asked basically to commit a sin of sleeping with a non-Jew. Again, not so clear what the sin is exactly, right? But let's just say there's a sin, or she was married already, which is how we usually understand there, right? She was already Eshedish, but so it's a sin of that. But Esther, and Esther did it, but it was B'far Hesia Havi. Right? Of course, now, what do you mean? What was B'far Hesia about Esther? Right? They presumably did this in private. But the point is that it doesn't mean B'far Hesia has to see the act. The fact that everybody knew, and of course, this was Achashverosh did this in front of the whole world. He's bringing in these women to sleep with them. Everybody knew that Esther was going, or at least 10 Jews, right? And sleeping with Achashverosh. So why didn't she have to say, I won't be part of the harem and I'm going to be killed? So how was Esther allowed to do it? Amar Abaya, says Abaya, well, Esther was different because Esther karka olam haita. Esther was completely passive. She was, the word karka olam meaning, dirt of the world or whatever. But it was passive. The same way you don't move the world. Esther was just passive, and Achashverosh did what he did, but she didn't have to stop that because she didn't actively participate. So you can allow someone to do it to you. Rav, again, very complicated what that would mean and what other contexts. Rava says it's very different with Achashverosh because you don't even need to think about that answer. Achashverosh didn't do this. This is one explanation to Esther because he wanted her to go against her Torah. He didn't even know Esther was Jewish, right? So clearly there was no sort of intention here to do that. Achashverosh really just did this for his own pleasure, right? He did it on Na'at Atzman Shani. He did it for his own hana, and therefore there was nothing about it that I'll use the word religious, even though I don't think that's really the adequate word. But it wasn't done in any way to show that Esther was, or for Esther to violate a mitzvah, and everybody knew that, right? Everybody knew Achashverosh was doing this. He didn't care whether she was Jewish or not Jewish, or married or not married. It didn't matter to him. He was just doing it for his own pleasure. And it says Rava, if you don't explain it the way I explained it, how about the case of Hani Kavake Bidimunaki? I'm sure these are great words in some other language, but Kavaki and Dimunaki, which mean like Rashi says, they're like shovels that you would use to burn things in front of the idols, right? How do we give them? How do we sell them, right? So the main supplier is probably always the case of the church was a Jewish supplier, right? So they provided these shovels, I guess that is how he explains them, to these avodah zarah, the Persian avodah zarah, right? I should say not shovels, like gichalim. They would put coals, right? I'm sure there's a fancy name for them, right? But they would put these in front. They would sell them to the church. So or it wasn't the church, right? But the Persian gods. How'd they do that? It must be that they're not buying it from you because they want a Jew to give them something to worship. They're doing it for themselves, right? They're buying it because they need it, and therefore achanami anat atzman shani. And the same thing would be true about Achashverosh and Esther, that because there was no religious rationale in what he was doing with her, or no reason, he wasn't doing it for her to do an act. He was just doing it for himself. She's allowed to participate. Again, very, very complicated how that applies to all the cases in Jewish history. But says the Gemara, and this, of course, is Rava, consistent with a different opinion that Rava said. The Amar Rava, we're around halfway down almost or more. Goy Damar Le'Laha Yisrael. Let's say a non-Jew says here, I think again, I have different component in front of you, an akum, right? Again, a non-Jew, Damar Le'Laha Yisrael. What I want you to do is kato aspasta b'shabata, cut down some aspasta, right, grass or whatever kind of bluegrass they had, cut it on Shabbos, which is an Isser of Shabbat of Ketzira, right? V'shadi the chayvate, and throw it to the cows, to the chayot, right? I want you to feed my animals on Shabbos. V'lo katinolach, and if not, I am going to kill you. So then, chil Shabbat, liktol v'lo lekatlei. Then, again, the question is why? Maybe it was in public, but you should be killed and not cut down the grass, okay? Sorry, I read it wrong. It's wrong. It's not what I just said. Liktol means you should cut down the grass, well, lekatlei, and don't be killed, right? Because, we'll see in a second why. Because, the reason is because the guy is asking to do it not for you to be Mechal Shabbat, but for you to feed his animals. But if he says to you, Shadin Nahara, I want you to cut down grass on Shabbat and throw it away, so clearly I don't want the grass, then he's doing it just to make you over on your mitzvah, and then liktale, you should be killed by him, lo liktol. My taima, labori milta kabay, because there he's just doing it to make you go against the word of in this way, milta means the word of the mitzvah of the Torah. So if he's coming to go against the mitzvah, then you have to reject it. You have to not listen to him, but if he's doing it for his own pleasure, you're allowed to listen to him. And the same thing was true about Achashverosh and Esther. Now, they asked Reb Ami, we are 8 lines, I think, or 9 lines on the bottom. Ben Noach mitzvah kedushat Hashem oin mitzvah kedushat Hashem. Right? We just learned a few weeks ago, I guess 2 weeks ago now, in Daf Yomi, of all the mitzvot that a Ben Noach has. So the Jew is ben mitzvot, the goy is mitzvot, a ben Noach has mitzvot. What if someone says to ben Noach, I want you to go against your mitzvot, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. So do they have to be mikadeshim shemayim like a Jew would have to? Amar Abaya says Abaya, well, I'll read the Braita. Tashma, the Braita said before, Sheva mitzvot mitzdavu b'nei Noach, that a b'nei Noach is commanded on 7 mitzvot, and we had a whole discussion before about what they were. But if a guy also had a commandment to sanctify Hashem, doing kedushat Hashem by not going against the mitzvah if their life is threatened, tam nahavin, right? Then there would be 8 mitzvot. They would be the 7 mitzvot of b'nei Noach, right? Gezel and Vodazara and everything we said earlier, and Abram and Achai, and kedushat Hashem. So the fact that there isn't an 8th means that he is not mitzvah kedushat Hashem, and he can't do these mitzvot. But if his life is in danger, he has to go against the mitzvah, commit the avera, and not sacrifice his life. Amalei Rava said, Rava, that's not necessarily the case, because inu b'choav Israel, when we say he does the mitzvot, he means them and everything that goes with them. Kedushat Hashem is a subset, basically, of every mitzvah. It's saying that the way you observe the mitzvah is also by being killed for it if it's going to be a chilul Hashem. And so a ben Noach would be mitzvah according to Rava in that. So ask the my havila. So it says okay, what's the conclusion? Is a non-Jew who's interested in fulfilling the mitzvot, or even if they're not interested, but we have the ability to coerce them, do they have to be mitzvah kedushat Hashem? Amar Avad Ava, Ami Beirav, Tiv, there's a very interesting pasuk in Melachim, where we talk about the davar. It's the quote now. Davar aseh yislach Hashem la'avdecha. Right? He says, it's the king of Naaman is saying this to Elisha. Right? It's for this thing you should forgive your servant. Bivo Adoni Beit Ramon. When my master, the Naaman was the Sar Tzava, was the general of Aram, right? The king of Aram. So when my Adoni goes to Beit Ramon, which I guess is the Beit Ramon is one of the Avodah Zarah of Ammon, Lishtachavot Shama, right? He goes there to bow down. V'hu nishan al yadi, and he's leaning on me. V'shtachaviti, I also bow down, right? So basically, he's saying I also worship Avodah Zarah because I have no choice. I'm the general, and if I don't bow down next to the king, it's going to look really bad. He leans on me, and I also bow down to the Avodah Zarah. V'chtiv. And Elisha said to him, "Vayomer lo lech l'shalom." I didn't specifically address that one, but he said after his whole discussion, "Go in peace." Right. So you see from there, right, that Elisha basically sanctioned the fact that he worshipped Avodah Zarah when he had no alternative. So says Marvin Ita, and if it's true, top now of Daf Ayin Hey Amin Aleph, that you're not that Ben Noach is mitzvah kedushat Hashem. Then he shouldn't have said to him, it's what you did was okay. He should have said to him, that's a mistake, or you've done something wrong. Says Gemara, well, that might be different because habit sinah, habit farhesia. That might be different. He was confessing essentially to Elisha things that he had done in private, right? When the two of them went. But if it was bifar hesia, in fact, it could be, and again, still a machloket, but it could be that in fact, if it was bifar hesia, even a ben Noach who wants to follow mitzvot would be mitzuveh on kedushat Hashem and would have to not do it, even if it meant risking their life. And so we actually don't necessarily resolve it today. We will continue this discussion, not to resolve it, but to continue the issue and the question about when a person is mitzuveh to kill himself, basically, or be killed, rather than do an aveira tomorrow. Miriam, can you join in the morning, or it's not possible? I'm sorry. Well, I'm flying in the evening, unless my flight gets canceled. So, Charlie, you're muted.
I'm fine in the morning.
7:45 a.m. works for me tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I have a 5:30 flight, which will not be in at any time. That's so 7:45 a.m. tomorrow. We'll miss you, Miriam. And next Shabbat, God willing, will be Motzaei Shabbat. I might also have to travel again. So, anyways, we'll discuss.
Wow.
Yeah.
Next Motzaei Shabbat, we lose an hour's sleep.
Well, that's after that.
Oh.
Yeah, my sister's daughter might be getting engaged, and I might have to go for a l'chaim.
Very nice.
I use the word might because officially he hasn't proposed to her and they don't know anything. But my daughter already told me that they have a wedding date and this and that. So I can't say for sure, but this is what I was told. So
where is it?
In Baltimore. So it's
Okay.
it's the Sunday
Good.
afternoon. It's
Oh,
Sunday
yeah,
evening.
yeah.
So
All
we'll
right.
see. Once it becomes official.
Well,
Anyways,
only good things.
only good things. Shavua tov, everyone.
Shavua tov.
I'll see some of you tomorrow morning.